Welcome back to the Rules of Engagement. Before I jump into our second segment, let me remind you guys, if you ever miss any of the videos here at MLG and the Rules of Engagement, you missed our championship events, any of the WCS events, anything that we do, if you ever miss it, it's all for free for 1080p quality on YouTube. youtube.com/official MLGSC2, your source for all Starcraft 2 content. So the next segment we're going to look at is going to be the first map in the series between Illusion and Alicia. I want to talk about a creative TVP opener that Illusion goes for. Then we're going to talk about efficient Protoss defense. And then also, whose army benefits the most from a lull. So a lull is like when there's no engagement happening, there's no action. So who's going to benefit the most from that? How to figure that out. Then how to know if you want to, try to create the engagement or if you want to try to stall for as long as possible. So we're going to start this replay at the 3-minute mark. And we're going to take a look at Illusion's build. And one thing we notice is he's going straight for that reactor. And he's actually going to go into double Reapers. And what's important to notice is it takes the same amount of length of time to build a reactor than 2 Reapers as it would just build 2 Reapers back to back. So because a reactor is something you're going to want at some point anyway, of course it helps your production. If you don't think your first Reaper will do significant damage, get the reactor first and get 2 Reapers at the same time if you want to get 2 Reapers. Now versus Protoss, this isn't super common for 2 reasons. One, well, the main reason is just because most people don't want 2 Reapers versus Protoss because they just want it to scout. They don't think they can do much damage. So if they only want 1 Reaper anyway, just go ahead and get that Reaper. Versus Zerg, even if you want several Reapers, the first Reaper does a lot of damage because the Zerg doesn't have any units out yet. And so that's where, actually, let me back this up a hair. That's where versus Zerg, they don't get the reactor first. But versus Protoss, Illusion has this creative idea where he's noticed that Alicia, in the series against Maker, they played right before this. What Alicia was doing is he would get only a single mothership core and 1 gateway unit. If we'd expand fast, and he wouldn't get the additional gate units because he'd be spending his money. He'd tech up very fast, relying on the Stalker and the mothership core to help defend. And so the idea is if these Reapers, because also Alicia was using that mothership core to scout, if these Reapers didn't cross the same path of that mothership core, if they went a different way, all of a sudden that mothership core would be busy harassing him, and he could easily defend it with the reactor Marines. And these 2 Reapers combined with SCV can also do massive damage to, of course, Alicia's base because all he has is the 1 Stalker. 2 Reapers with proper micro can handle that Stalker fairly easily, especially when you pull the SCV to help. So imagine here if this mothership core didn't come back to defend. The second Stalker still has 30 seconds to be produced. Even with Chrono Boost, it would be 20 seconds to be produced. And in 20 seconds, these Reapers would have free reign over the entire Protoss space. This Stalker, of course, is on the verge of death, and then so many probes could go down. And in TVP, even doing like 4 or 5 probe kills early is insanely powerful because Protoss has to build workers at a fixed rate, same as Terran. And so those are workers that they can't just like be extra greedy because there's a limited rate to which you can produce those workers, right? I mean, the most you can do is Chrono Boost your Nexus and build them one at a time out of the Nexus. So going forward, it was a cool opening, and it still was okay. I mean, he almost killed the Stalker. He forced the mothership core not to scout, so Alicia doesn't know what he's doing. And he caused some probes to be pulled. But it would have almost been an insane advantage. It probably would led him to actually entirely win that game. He's also doing a unique follow-up where he went for a very fast stim. He really delayed his expansion to get a lot of stim Marines very, very early. Of course, the reactor building Marines, and then even getting this second barracks with this tech lab before the second command center. So he's behind economically because of the build he's made. But he's really going to put a lot of pressure onto Alicia. And this is where we want to talk about how Protoss defending these type of timings, how to make your defense very efficient, because this is a lot of units that's going to be crossing the map. And stim's going to be done. And the Protoss has basically very few units. And that's because, of course, Protoss wants to tech aggressively. Like, he wants to have the Forge early. He wants to be going straight to High Templar. He wants to have the Observers out with the Robo. He wants all these things that don't involve building a lot of gateway units early. So now Alicia's stuck in a position where he's got to deal with a significant threat with minimal defense. So right here, he sees it coming up, right? Actually, he saw it crossing the map with the Observer anyway. But the idea is, for Protoss to be efficient with their defense, it's all about using your energy units, your mothership cores, your sentries, your Templar, whatever it is. Use those units to trade energy for some of their things that cost minerals. So right here, right, he puts Photon Overcharge. Illusion doesn't back up. And right here, if you think about it, actually, Illusion's army has 2 choices, right? One, it can keep going forward, and 2, it can back away. Now, what Alicia wants to do here is he wants to basically, if the whole army goes forward, it'll walk in and kill all his units. That's not good. If the whole army backs up, then of course what happens is he doesn't actually kill much of it, obviously. So if he's going to use energy, he wants to actually get some kills. But he also doesn't want the whole army to come in. So this is where you have to be super efficient. You want to cut their army right in half. And if you cut in half, what you can then do there is you can make, half these units isn't enough to kill too many of your guys, hopefully. You can kill those, and the other half have to back away, and you lost some energy, but you kill a lot of units. You're very cost efficient. So keep in mind at exactly the half mark that Alicia is looking for as we look through this battle. Right there, time warp to give him more time to place force fields perfectly. Then he cuts it perfectly in half. Right here, perfectly in half. And then, of course, he gets all those unit kills. He saves, he loses a couple units, but overall, very, very, very efficient for Alicia there. That's the key to making efficient Protoss defense, is always about only fighting a portion of the army at once. Never going up head-to-head against the entire army. And then going forward, of course, Alicia now has a significant advantage because Illusion cut so much economy to do that attack, which kind of backfired and actually was cost inefficient for him. In fact, the foods are even, while Alicia's been teching insanely fast straight to Storm. We're normally turning to be 20-30 food ahead at this point. Of course, Illusion is not done with his aggression. He's going to do a second attack towards Alicia. And this is the next part about efficient Protoss defense. So, again, it's going to be all about those energy-based spellcaster units. But it's not always about cutting units in half. It's partly about using the abilities very well and placing them correctly. But it's also sometimes a surprise factor. A good Terran player will see how many sentries you have, see how many Templar you have, right? And for example, for Illusion, he can see these Templar. Okay, they're just warped in, no storms. If there's a Templar here that has energy, he'll send in four Marines and he'll send the rest run away, right? He'll be careful. But what he can't account for is Templar, of course, that may be hit from the back, where he's not paying attention because his attention is focused over here. Or using a high ground point right here, where if you have Templar on the high ground, Illusion can't see those. And all of a sudden, a storm that would normally not be as effective because he would see it coming because he sees a Templar is much, much, much more effective and much, much, much more useful. So that attack didn't work out either. Alicia, again, gets a little bit ahead. But he's going to try this harass over here. And Illusion, of course, is a very, very fast player, so he's going to be all over this. Very quick, pulling SVs, getting right back to work, takes out the War Prisoner and his Zealots, and saves the eBay as well. So great defense there by Illusion. Now going forward, we're now at this part of the game where it kind of becomes, they both are realizing, okay, well, Alicia's ahead, but it's hard to cross the whole map, especially with Templar put on aggression. He also is, he wants to really go for the late game, given his composition, given the fact he's still investing in all these upgrades. So he's not in any rush to be aggressive. Illusion doesn't have the strength anymore to really do these mass straight-on attacks. So it becomes a game of harassment, right? Zealot harasses at the third to be annoying. Dropship harass, etc., things like that. So going forward, if it's going to be a game of harassment with this type of dropship shenanigans and the type of Zealot run-bys, it's very important to have map vision. So both these players are really going to be fighting over map vision. And that's such an important part about the mid-game of PvT. So you look at Alicia right now has very good map vision. Very good map vision. He's got both the watchtowers. He's got the left side locked down with the pylons. The right side's the only weakness, and he's got his army covering that spot. So very, very, very good map vision. Illusion also has pretty good map vision. He's got the drops on the right and the drop on the left, but not ideal. So that's what he's doing. He's going to take over the watchtowers to try to reestablish that vision. He's going to use this dropship over here to knock out some of these pylons, and that will both eliminate Alicia's vision, right? He kills the pylon over here, and also relieve that pressure of the Zealot harass. Of course, Zealots will now have to be warped in from further away. And now that Alicia doesn't have the vision, these drops can also be much, much more effective. He can even take out a key forge as upgrading a key upgrade. So it's all about vision in the mid game. But then going past the mid game, just cute harass and stuff. Maybe you can get advantage. Maybe you get a small edge here, a small edge there. But it really always comes down to, not always. The majority of the time it's going to come down to these very large engagements, right? Both players are going to get very large armies. Both the army sizes are going to be very big right now. Illusion's slightly ahead in army size, but it's all going to come down to basically who controls your force better in those engagements. And the first question is, should you look for an engagement, right? So you can pause the game here and think, okay, over the next minute, or next 30 seconds, whatever time frame you want to think, which player benefits more? Well, over the next minute, what's Illusion? He's going to add in more ghosts. He already has a decent amount of ghosts, though. What he really needs is more Vikings and medevacs, but unfortunately he only has one starport. So he's actually not going to get that much stronger over the next minute. I mean, he'll get more units, but compositionally there's not going to be anything key that'll help him. For Alicia's point of view, right? Over the next minute, he's going to finish off the ground level 3 upgrade. That's a big upgrade. And then he's also going to start adding more and more Colossi. And that's actually going to be very important for him because combining Storm and Colossi is really where Protoss gets their huge power. And right now, he only has 2 Colossi and only 3 High Templar in his main army. I think he has a couple other High Templar around to drop her ass. But if he can get those numbers up higher, that'll help him a lot. Whereas, and he can do that with Warp Gates. He can warp in Templar, Robo can constantly produce Colossi, and he has a Forge. So he has 3 buildings, or actually he has a lot because all the Warp Gates. He has a lot of buildings that are all going to improve his composition greatly. Whereas Illusion already has kind of enough ghosts to deal with Templar. I mean, not the super late game Doom composition, but ideally what he really needs is he needs the extra air units, and he can't do that. So an engagement right now would be pretty effective for Illusion because over the next minute, Alicia is going to benefit more than he will. Unfortunately, he walks right into a bunch of Templar and lets him get right up to his army, not quite paying attention, and suffers massive, massive damage from storms. And now all of a sudden, the thing's totally switched, right? Over the next minute or two, what's going to happen? Well, one, his army won't be half dead. He lost like half his army right now, except he can recover it all over a couple minutes if nothing happens, if he gets that chance to regenerate. So he wants to avoid an engagement now because he needs to heal up his units. With one medevac, that's not really going to happen. On the other hand, also, if you can wait until cloaking gets done, that's a huge upgrade for Terran versus Protoss in the late game. So all of a sudden, the table switch. Because of those storms, Illusion's like, no, I don't want the engagement. I want the lull right now, right? And then, of course, he's going to wait till he can heal his guys up a bit. And he doesn't heal his guys up fully for some reason. I think he's being a little overeager here, not waiting for, of course, the cloak, not waiting to finish healing up his units. Going for another engagement at a time when really Alicia wants the engagement because Alicia's already maxed out, so he can't add any more area of effect into his units. And if we look at the upgrades, Terran has more important upgrades in production than, of course, the Protoss. Terran, of course, can continue to build orbitals at this point, where the Protoss can't increase their economy very well. So this is the point when the Protoss wants the engagement. But Lucian's going to come up here, and then again, unfortunately, he doesn't see the Templar until he's within a couple squares of him, and he hates more and more massive storms. And here it's even more super important now that he wants to avoid an engagement. So Alicia doesn't like the positioning and the fact that a good EMP was landed, but right there, let's back this up actually just a hair. There we go. Right at that point right there where Alicia's like, okay, let's fast forward just a second here. Right at this point right here, right? Because Alicia wants an engagement right now because the army's crippled. This is the perfect time to engage. The Zealots alone will clear everything. But all of a sudden, a couple of good EMPs go down, and his units get very hurt, and they were all strung out in the line where the back Zealots wouldn't engage well. So he backed up. He backed up and spread out, and that was the perfect time right there. Right there is what decided the battle, because Alicia wasn't in the great position to take the battle, even though he wanted the engagement. So he had to back up and reform his units. And that was the prime time for Illusion to back away and create that lull, create that space that he needed to, one, make sure not every single one of his units was going to die in one hit. And then 2, of course, finish up the cloak upgrade and maybe even still long enough to get weapons +3. But most importantly, really just heal up those units. But unfortunately, Illusion gets a little bloodthirsty. Happens to everyone. And as we see what happens, if you get bloodthirsty but all your units are already dead, they're just going to be finished off with a couple swipes to the Zealot Claws and even a couple Colossi beams as well. And all of a sudden, his food is plummeting. More units time. He's going to eventually kill the Colossi most likely, but losing all the Vikings, losing all the ground units, Alicia still has a massive army. And from here, all Alicia has to do is on the 4th, and he'll be playing a base up with a massive advantage going forward. And Illusion can no longer really compete in this game. So it's going to close it there. A couple really important things about that game is, one, the creative opening of Illusion was really cool at first. The idea that you get the 2 Reapers. If he was able to sneak him past that Mothership Core, he might have done enough damage to be really far ahead in that game right to start. But that's not a build I was just you guys to do at home, because it was based on the idea that Alicia was cutting a lot of gateway units early, so the double Reapers would do a lot of damage. Now, a lot of Protosses on the ladder or the guys you match, they might get like a Zealot and 2 Stalkers at that point in the game, and then you can't really do quite as much damage. The other part of his build, though, that stem timing, that kind of relies on a Protoss not having that perfect spell casting ability. And Alicia, of course, hit those spells absolutely perfectly to deny that aggression from Illusion. But what was really important that game is to understand your situation and think to yourself, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. How will my army improve? How will my upgrades improve? You know, my food improve? My composition improve? And then if you have good scouting, you know what your opponent's doing, you kind of know where they're at in the game, you can try to guesstimate how the next couple of minutes will evolve for them, and then you can know whether or not you want to seek those engagements. And that really determines a lot of games. We just saw it here. It's very, very hard to do that. That's one of the skills that's very, very important in StarCraft, though, and it's a fun one to master as well. This wraps up the analysis on Illusion versus Alicia game number 1. We'll take a short break and be right on to game number 2.